Really interesting chat actually with that vegan activist. I'm always very wary when we get an activist in. You just sort of think, oh God, they're not going to chain themselves to something, are they? But it is an interesting conversation with people about cruelty to animals. I worry about cruelty to voters. Another 3 weeks to go. 3 weeks. We've had 3 already. It feels like 3 months, 3 weeks. The only good thing about an election on July the 4th, Benedict, is that it's not in October or November. Mm-hmm. We haven't had to deal with this pile of absolute steaming for another 6 months. It's going to be over and done with. We've got the Green Manifesto launched today. We've got the Labour Manifesto launched yesterday. Tomorrow we had Tories yesterday. Lib Dems, Reform doing not really a manifesto, something else next week. I'm done. I'm a political journalist. I'm done. I can't do any more of these debates, these interviews. It's so painful. I don't believe a word any of them are saying.
I'm a politico. Get me out of here. Yeah, honestly, I think a lot of people. I think I'll speak
for the nation.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, as you were saying earlier, the parties are sort of throwing out numbers. Oh, they're going to cost you that much. They're going to cut. Yeah.
What they said today.
Rishi Sunak might as well have stood up at the manifesto launch dressed as Dr. Evil and say, "We're going to cut $100 billion," and it wouldn't have made any difference.
But that's the thing. People don't believe a word any of them are saying.
Yeah. Because they are lying to you. That's the thing. When Labour say they're not going to put up taxes, and then they get rather fiddly about, which taxes they might touch. No, if they are going to do any of the things that they are promising, they will have to put up taxes.
VAT on school fees isn't going to pay for everything.
It'll cost you more money in the long run.
Keir Starmer, he said in this morning in an interview, none of our plans require tax rises. Plans. That's always plans. Whoever gets into power, they're going to say, turns out, although the Tories won't have the excuse if they did in a shock revolt against the polls get in, they can't say, we didn't know what was in the books. Look, is Labour going to, reform the NHS, tackle and lower immigration significantly, tackle a million potholes, revive the economy, deal with the channel market? No, they're not. Are the Tories going to cut more taxes while not slashing public services? Are they going to do get rid of send people on the boats to Rwanda? Are they going to send 100,000 migrants home? No. Are they going to build 1.6 million homes? No. No one's going to do any of it, and no one thinks they are. So what's the point of the whole thing? I'm getting into an existential battle in my own mind about this.
Be careful, Julia, because you're the person that says you must vote across everything.
I do. You have to vote no matter what.
What you're advocating is nationwide. Everybody should say none of the above.
Benign dictatorship.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of democracy. But what about benign dictatorship? I'm offering my services.
Yeah, but this is the problem. Then we get into a discussion as to which of the two of us would be better. And I think actually the public quite like my vision rather than yours.
Your policies would just be about people's tailors and things.
What's wrong with that? I think many people would like to return to the 1940s. Well, perhaps not the 40s. That wasn't the best decade.
That's not a good time. No, I digress. Let's talk about more serious things. Look, there have been a lot of offers. Look, Tory manifesto pledges. We've got Labour manifesto pledges tomorrow. Interesting report from Sir John Curtis, the electoral expert, who is often now on the telly. Trust and confidence in the UK's politics election system has never been worse, he says. Damaged politics sees voters' trust at a record low. That is saying something, isn't it?
It is. In many ways, it perhaps gives the Conservatives an advantage, seeing as they're going to go through the absolute carpet bombing first, rather than the Labour Party. The Labour Party has tried to go through a sort of a rebuilding effort, but it's not tried to sort of radically reform itself. It's basically just Blairism light, not very good. Whereas the Conservatives could, realistically, potentially see themselves over the next 5 years rebuild themselves from scratch without very many of the people who, the public hold in very low regard because they're guilty by association. So if you wanted a little note of optimism, a frisson of hope if you were a Conservative, there it is. The wipeout might give you a chance to start over. But it's going to be a long 5 years because Labour are really going to struggle with a lot of things they're going to inherit. These are structural issues. Yeah. And I don't see...
Nothing changes because you've got a red rosette on.
Yeah, and I don't see the plans in the Labour manifesto or coming from the backbenches or even just whispered behind the scenes off record. I don't hear anything that would actually address the structural issues, which is how the country is sliding from, towards mediocrity. And when people say both parties are the same. This is what they mean. There is no plan to fundamentally change what is broken.
And that is the thing, isn't it? I mean, it's interesting that Richard Curtis, that's not Richard Curtis, Sir John Curtis, he suggests that, that the public have been disillusioned over things like Brexit. And again, when we talk about, people are disappointed in Brexit, no, they're disappointed in the fact that politicians, including now the leader of the Labour Party, spent years trying to stop the enactment of a democratic vote, but they're also disenchanted with, political scandals, Partygate, and again that comes to lockdown. Rules for thee and not for me. Corruption and all that. I mean, the number of politicians of all parties who have been arrested and actually charged and gone to prison over various different things, whether you go back to expenses or just sex assaults. I mean, it's astonishing. But also the cost of living crisis. At the end of the day, they're managing the economy. They want to take the credit, like the Tories trying to do when inflation's been hard. We did that. Well, then you have to take the blame for when it goes up. In fact, you've actually haven't got that much control over it, but I think people just feel like they're just constantly being lied to, and they can't trust these people, and that is dangerous.
It is. And on the subject of Brexit has actually just taken the place of the European Union for something that politicians can just blame. Once upon a time it was, we can't do that because of Europe. Now it's, we can't do that because of Brexit. Brexit was neither a good thing nor a bad thing. It was an opportunity. If you decide you're going to leave the European Union, but you're going to keep lots and lots of the laws that the EU gave you because you don't want to get rid of them because actually you half agree with that, I'm looking at the Conservatives, nothing is going to change. Why would that change if actually all you've done is just leave the single market and made some aspects of that slightly more difficult? You've not made the most of other opportunities, and you've kept the status quo.
That's from the disillusionments. Just by the way, just so you know, the Green Party co-leaders, Carla Denyer and Adrian Ramsey, no, I hadn't heard of them either. No, they're launching their party's manifesto right now at an event in Hove in East Sussex. We've got actually Sian Berry, I think she's a previous London mayoral candidate. She's currently speaking at the moment, and they were launching their policies. Now, we did speak to Natalie Bennett yesterday, former Green Party leader. Obviously, we try and speak to all the different parties on different days over the week to make sure we're getting you, make sure you know what all the parties are doing. So we'll bring you their major announcements a little bit later. Let's also talk more about Rishi Sunak. He's not had a great week. That launched yesterday, the manifesto. I'd be surprised if it shifts anywhere in the polls, although there is some evidence that that there has actually been some slight movement when it comes to the Tories in terms of tax and their idea. We're tax cutters, Labour are tax risers, even though, of course, we have seen we're now at a 70-year high in terms of the tax take in this country. But we've seen reform edging up, Tories edging down, Lib Dems edging up as well. But Reform UK now 1 point behind the Tories in this latest new poll. This is a YouGov poll for Sky yesterday. Lib Dems, so equally, they're up 4 points. So we've got, interestingly on this, we've got Labour 20-point lead, way ahead. But again, dropping few points. They're on 38%. Conservatives down one on 18%. Nigel Farage, which is a party, on 17%, just 1 point behind. And on 50%, the Lib Dems. The Greens on 8%. SNP, of course, just in Scotland, taking 2%. But there's no doubt at all, people are turning more and more to the smaller parties.
And that's possibly going to increase the sooner, closer we get to the polls, as people who are undecided look more and more at the Conservatives and realise, well, I'm undecided for a reason. I don't like what the Conservatives have done. I don't particularly like what Labour has to offer me. It hasn't enthused me, so I will vote for a fringe party, a protest party, an alternative party. The thing is, of course, that doesn't necessarily reflect what will happen on election day when people go into the booths and they go, do you know what, actually I am going to vote Tory because I don't want to let Labour in this area. So we can look at this and we can say it is impressive what Reform has done. Will it actually translate into any seats? Even now, I wouldn't be surprised if they got zero.
I mean, certainly that is one of the predictions, or possibly one. A candidate, obviously, who crossed over from the Conservatives. Or again, lots of predictions for the leader of the party. I'm trying not to mention any constituency. If you mention the constituency under Ofcom rules, I have to read out the list of all the candidates standing. So please understand why I don't. But of course, we that is obviously a big threat. It's being taken very seriously in Conservative circles. Certainly on the right wing of the party, they're tearing their hair out about all of this.